Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're navigating into some profoundly challenging territory. We're going to be exploring Jon Athan's book, The Groomer. And this isn't just any book, from what I understand. It's an experience. Based on the reviews and summaries you shared with us, it's one that promises to leave a really indelible mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's crucial we set expectations right from the very start here. This deep dive, much like the book itself, it's really not for the faint-hearted.
Okay.
The sources we looked at described The Groomer as, and I'm quoting here, one of the most brutal, savage, hard-to-read books the reviewer has ever encountered.
Wow.
Another quote called it a narrative that will shatter your soul. It deals with extremely graphic and, frankly, psychologically tormenting themes head-on.
So be prepared.
Exactly. Our mission today is to understand the book's content, its audacious purpose, you could say, and its undeniable impact. But it's absolutely vital for you, our listener, to know this material is not for sensitive readers or those triggered by child harm. We'll be discussing some very disturbing real-world topics because they're inherent to the book, but we'll do it with the utmost respect for the victims and the sheer gravity of the subject.
That definitely sets a very clear stage. So, okay, let's begin to unpack this. What's the core narrative? What actually drives The Groomer, and what makes it so impactful, even if harrowing, right from page one?
Well, at its heart, The Groomer is a relentless, almost unbearably brutal revenge story. It centers on a father named Andrew McCarthy.
Okay.
And the narrative kicks off with this really insidious moment. Andrew spots a man named Zachary Denton taking photographs of children in public, including his own young daughter, Grace.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And while the police kind of dismiss his concerns initially, a father's intuition, plus second chilling encounter Andrew has with the same man, Zachary, it just escalates his dread into this consuming fear.
I can only imagine.
And then days later, Grace vanishes. Just gone, without a trace. And the official police system, it proves woefully inadequate, slow.
The system fails him.
Completely. Andrew's world just shatters. And this catastrophic failure, it ignites something really primal within him. It sets him on this terrifying vigilante path that, it gradually transforms him from a desperate protector into something much darker, a vengeful monster, really.
That transition from loving father to vengeful figure, that sounds like the absolute epicenter of the book's intensity.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through what that transformation actually looks like? How does the author portray his hunt for his daughter as it gets more desperate, more violent?
It's unflinching, almost visceral in its portrayal. As Andrew loses all faith in, the traditional justice system, he essentially appoints himself judge, jury, and, executioner. He begins this relentless hunt for local sex offenders. And he uses extreme and increasingly violent methods of torture to extract information, any leads about where his daughter might be.
So he's really crossing lines.
Completely obliterating them. And this descent isn't just physical violence, it's deeply psychological, too. What he slowly starts to uncover through these brutal interrogations is this vast, interconnected, and profoundly disturbing dark web child trafficking ring.
The dark web. So we're talking hidden internet, serious anonymity.
Exactly. That hidden part of the internet, not indexed by Google or anything, often used for all sorts of illicit activities because it offers anonymity. And this particular ring Andrew uncovers is led by this cryptic, almost mythical figure known only as Cheese.
Cheese.
Yes. And Andrew's methods, they just escalate way beyond anything you could call conventional justice. The sources describe it as a progression into mutilation, murder, and moral collapse.
Good grief.
The book even deliberately draws a comparison to John Wayne's character in The Searchers. You remember that film?
Vaguely, yes.
Yeah.
The one where he's searching for his niece?
That's the one, where you're, quote, never quite sure if he wants to save his daughter or kill her. And that comparison, it speaks volumes about Andrew's desperate, time-sensitive quest and the terrifying possibility that maybe he's prepared for the worst possible outcome regarding Grace.
That's showing.
And the narrative, it doesn't shy away from showing how this abduction just tears his whole family apart. His wife, his son, they become casualties in his single-minded, increasingly deranged pursuit of revenge. He literally starts losing his mind in the process.
It really sounds like the book isn't just a straightforward revenge thriller at all. It's more like a deep dive into the most disturbing corners of, human behavior and societal dysfunction.
Precisely.
So beyond the visceral plot, the sources point to some really powerful underlying themes emerging. Which ones resonate most strongly, and how does the book actually tackle them?
Yeah, the sources highlight several critical, often really uncomfortable themes that define the book's impact. The first and maybe the most central is this stark contrast between justice versus vengeance.
Right, the classic dilemma.
But amplified to an extreme. The book forces you, the reader, to grapple with this profound moral question. At what point does Andrew, in his quest for what he sees as justice, become indistinguishable from the monsters he's hunting?
Does his vigilantism serve justice, or is it just pure rage?
Exactly. Is it pure, unbridled vengeance? And the real takeaway here isn't just what Andrew does, but crucially, what it costs him.
His humanity.
His humanity, his sanity, his family, everything. And by extension, it makes us question the very nature of justice when faced with such unspeakable evil. It's not an easy answer.
No, definitely not.
What else? The second major theme is the chilling reality of digital predators. The Groomer starkly illustrates how figures like this cheese character weaponize online trust, exploiting the very tools meant to connect us.
How so?
It shows in really disturbing detail how sex offenders use online platforms and networks, including dark web forums, encrypted messaging apps, you name it, to meet, discuss, plan, and commit their heinous crimes.
So it gets into the mechanics of it.
Oh yeah. The book delves into the horrifying logistics of these rings, where the money goes and where the kids go, revealing the sophisticated, often international nature of these networks. It even touches on how predators exploit vulnerable kids through seemingly innocent online games and social media.
Terrifying. And the third theme?
The third is parental ruin, depicted with brutal, brutal honesty. It's a terrifying exploration of how the unimaginable trauma of child abduction doesn't just impact the child, it can utterly erode a parent's morality and sanity.
Andrew's breakdown.
Exactly. His mental deterioration is meticulously chronicled. It shows how trauma can metastasize, destroying not only his perception of right and wrong, but also his relationships with everyone he still has left. The sources mention a shattering climax where Andrew confronts the ring, but the ultimate cost is his own sanity, his own soul. It leaves the reader with absolutely no easy answers or comforting resolutions, just devastation.
Wow. It sounds like the book truly dissects the human cost of these horrors, and it's clear the author isn't pulling any punches whatsoever.
Not at all.
Now, a crucial aspect the sources really stress is the book's stark realism, particularly how these horrific crimes are, quote, based on real crimes committed by real perverts.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some insight into how the book manages to bring these real-world horrors to life in such a chillingly authentic way?
Absolutely. That's really where its power lies, however unsettling. The reviewer notes that the Groomer really nails the whole underground violent pedophilia scheme. The author's ability to portray these realities without flinching is what gives the book its deeply, deeply unsettling power.
Are there specific examples mentioned? Though I'm almost afraid to ask.
There are, and they're tough. There are specific scenes described as incredibly difficult to read, scenes that create, quote, a feeling of desperation and hopelessness that actually had me crying.
Oh, man.
For instance, one scene apparently details the abduction of a young boy, and then his abductor torturing and murdering a baby right in front of him. Yeah. It isn't just gratuitous violence. The review suggests it's designed to shock the reader into acknowledging the absolute depth of depravity that exists in the world.
To make it undeniable.
Precisely. Another heartbreaking scene involves a young girl who gets blackmailed. She's ordered to commit increasingly heinous acts, filmed constantly, and eventually she's driven to suicide, realizing, quote, she had no options.
The helplessness.
Exactly. And these examples highlight the, quote, clever and criminal genius methods these predators employ, constantly filming victims, using that footage as a tool for ongoing blackmail and control. It's not just shock for shock's sake. It's presented as a terrifying mirror held up to real-world horrors, forcing you to confront what you might otherwise choose to ignore. It's an incredibly brave, if utterly devastating choice by the author.
That level of detail and realism is almost unbearable just hearing about it. Yet it sounds vital for understanding the book's intended impact. Which brings up an important question. The book educates readers about profoundly disturbing elements, including something called hurtcore. Can you explain what that term means and what the book's intention could possibly be by including material like that?
Right. Hurtcore videos, as defined in the source material we reviewed, are specifically videos involving the rape, torture, mutilation, and humiliation of young children for sexual gratification.
Oh my God.
And these are apparently sold online via the darknet, which again highlights the commercial, organized nature of this specific type of evil.
So, Why include it in the book? What's the purpose?
Well, the book's intention in including such horrific material, according to the review, is emphatically not to be some kind of how-to guide or to sensationalize it purely for entertainment. It's stressed that's not the goal.
Okay, so what is the goal?
Rather, it aims to educate you as to the nature of what is really going on in this world. That's the key phrase from the review. It's designed to strip away any illusions, any comfortable ignorance, and make readers acutely aware of the chilling reality of child sex trafficking and the monstrous methods predators use.
To show the unvarnished truth.
Exactly. The author emphasizes, through the narrative, that, quote, the demons in this story, though, don't have fangs or hockey masks. They are real, and they could be your next-door neighbor, a coworker, even a relative.
That concept of mundane evil. It's terrifying.
It's profoundly unsettling. The reviewer describes encountering this aspect in the book as chilling and deeply disturbing, saying it would profoundly affect anyone who reads it. It basically aims to tear down any walls of comfortable ignorance we might build around ourselves about these dark corners of society.
Given the incredibly difficult, unflinching subject matter, what's the ultimate lesson then? Or the takeaway the author, Jon Athan, hopes to impart to the reader through the Groomer? Is there a clear message he leaves us with after navigating such a devastating narrative?
Well, the sources seem to distill a very clear, if incredibly stark, lesson from the Groomer. It comes down to this. Quote, to beware of strangers and avoid people in power who seem to have an unhealthy attraction to children.
A stark warning.
Very stark. It's a warning embedded within this devastating narrative. And it's not just about, obvious physical danger, but about recognizing the subtle, insidious signs of predation that can exist right there in plain sight.
So it's call to vigilance.
Absolutely. A call to vigilance wrapped in a story that basically makes complacency impossible. The book serves as a brutal reminder that these threats are real, they're pervasive, and they're often hidden right under our noses. It really challenges readers to reevaluate their understanding of safety and evil in the modern world.
It sounds incredibly powerful in a deeply disturbing way.
It does. And for those listening who feel prepared to engage with this kind of challenging material, who want to understand these realities more deeply, you can find a link to purchase The Groomer in the episode description.
Yeah, good point. And just to add some important context to this whole deep dive, The Groomer was published back in 2020 by Jon Athan himself. He acted as both the author and the editor.
Self-published.
Right, which essentially gave him complete creative control over its uncompromising vision. And it's also worth noting who our primary reviewer source is, David Tamarin.
Ah, yes.
He's a writer known for his own works in, well, extreme and brutal hardcore horror.
Right, he writes in that genre himself.
Exactly. And he also has a stated fascination with the concept of snuff films, which, for listeners unaware, are films that purportedly depict actual murder for entertainment or gratification.
A very specific interest.
Very specific. And knowing this background gives you a sense of the lens through which this book, The Groomer, is being reviewed. It emphasizes that even for someone immersed in extreme horror literature, this book stood out for its shocking and profoundly disturbing nature.
Yeah, it means something when someone familiar with extreme content says this book is particularly impactful. It wasn't just someone casually reading a thriller and being shocked. This is an expert in extreme content attesting to its profound effect.
Exactly. So this deep dive into The Groomer,
Yeah.
it's been intense. I think grueling might even be the word. It's a book described as offering, quote, no catharsis, only devastation. And one that, quote, doesn't just cross lines. He incinerates them. One review even labeled it a grenade disguised as a book that will make you read with one hand covering your mouth.
Yeah, those descriptions really capture the intensity. And while it is profoundly disturbing and undoubtedly will be a traumatic experience for some readers, the sources ultimately label it an important book.
Important despite, or maybe because of, the horror.
Perhaps. It serves as a brutal, necessary indictment of online predation and child sex trafficking. And it's a chilling exploration of the human cost of vengeance. It forces its readers to become aware of grim realities, the chilling criminal genius behind these dark acts, leaving them with this indelible, uncomfortable understanding of the evil that exists.
So if we try to connect this to the bigger picture, this deep dive really compels us, doesn't it, to confront some incredibly uncomfortable truths about the world we live in. What does it even mean for us to acknowledge that such profound evil exists?
That's the big question, isn't it?
And how do we process that knowledge? Even if we ultimately choose not to engage directly with the full text of a book like The Groomer, just knowing it's out there, Maybe the very act of engaging with these difficult topics, even at a slight remove like this discussion, changes our perspective. Perhaps it fortifies our resolve in some way. It's definitely something to think about.
It certainly is.
For those listeners who feel ready, who are interested in experiencing the full, unvarnished impact of the Groomers for themselves, remember, you can find that link to purchase the book in our episode description. Thank you for joining us on this particularly intense deep dive.